Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something genuinely strange. We're talking about Halloween, a holiday that somehow evolved from ancient Celts, terrified of ghosts, into suburban kids collecting candy corn. So before we start, go ahead and like the video if you enjoy this kind of deep dive, and subscribe if you want more weird history. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and whether you're team candy corn or team literally anything else. Now, get comfortable. Maybe grab some Halloween candy, if you've got any lying around. Dim the lights if you want that spooky atmosphere. And let's journey through 2,000 years of the strangest holiday evolution you've ever heard. This is the bizarre history of Halloween, from terrified Celts to trick or treating, and trust me, it only gets weirder from here. You didn't choose to be born into a world of spirits and shadows. You simply arrived, screaming, on a cold October night when the veil between worlds was supposedly at its thinnest. The midwife crossed herself twice. Your mother said you came out with your eyes wide open, staring at something no one else could see. The priest suggested a blessing. Your father suggested whiskey. Both happened, though not necessarily in that order. But you're not the story here. Not really. You're just along for the ride, a witness to something far stranger than any single human life. You're here to learn about a holiday that shouldn't exist, a celebration born from terror, shaped by conquest, and ultimately transformed into a night where children dressed as monsters beg strangers for candy. This is Halloween, and nothing about it makes sense until you look at where it came from. We need to go back, way back. Before your birth, before your parents' birth, before anyone you've ever known walked the earth. We're talking about a time when the calendar itself was a matter of life and death. When the changing of seasons wasn't just about weather, it was about survival. Picture this, you're a Celt living in what will one day be called Ireland, Scotland, Wales, or northern France. It's roughly 2,000 years ago, give or take a century, because honestly, record keeping wasn't exactly a priority when you're trying not to starve or get trampled by an invading army. The year is ending. Not on December 31st. Mind you, that's a Roman invention you haven't heard of yet. Your year ends on October 31st, the last gasp of summer. The final harvest before winter's jaws snap shut around your village. They call this festival Samhain, pronounced so-in. If you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, though pronunciation varied wildly depending on which muddy settlement you called home. Samhain isn't a party, it's a reckoning. Here's what you believe, and belief matters more than truth when you're cold and scared, and the sun is disappearing earlier each day. The boundary between the living world and the other world, the realm of the dead, becomes permeable on Samhain night. The dead can walk, spirits can cross over, and not the friendly, grandma checking in on you kind of spirits. We're talking about angry ghosts, mischievous fairies, and things that don't have names because naming them might draw their attention. So what do? You don't hide. You can't hide. Instead, you fight back with the only weapons available: fire and chaos. Massive bonfires are built, flames reaching toward the sky like prayers made of light. The druids, those mysterious priests, magician judge figures who run the spiritual show, oversee these fires with rituals you're not entirely privy to. Animal sacrifices happen. Bones are burned. The word, bonfire, itself possibly derived from bone fire, though etymologists will argue about this for centuries while sitting in comfortable offices, far removed from the primal terror of a Samhain night. You wear disguises, not cute ones. You dress as something other than human, because if the spirits can't recognize you as alive, they might pass you by. You might smear your face with ash, wear animal skins, turn yourself into something liminal, something neither here nor there. It's the original Halloween costume, born not from creativity but from pure survival instinct. The Celts aren't stupid. They leave offerings for the spirits, food and drink placed outside homes, a protection racket negotiated with the dead. Take this, leave us alone. Seems like a reasonable trade when the alternative is supernatural harassment or worse. Some villages set places at the table for deceased family members, a gesture both welcoming and cautious. Yes, Uncle Brennan, we remember you. Here's some mead. Please don't curse the livestock. Divination is huge on Samhain. The future feels closer when time itself seems to be fracturing. Young people, especially young women, because of course it's always young women in these stories, try to glimpse their future spouses through various rituals. Apple peeling that when thrown over your shoulder might form the initial of your beloved. Nuts thrown into fires, their behavior supposedly revealing marital compatibility. Mirror gazing in darkened rooms, waiting for a face to appear that isn't your own, but might be your destiny. It's equal parts hopeful and terrifying, this negotiation with fate. But you, sitting here in your modern world with your electric lights and central heating, you need to understand something crucial. Samhain isn't fun. It's necessary. It's the acknowledgement that death exists, that winter kills, that the world has teeth. The Celts are staring into the void, and the void is staring back, and they're doing it communally, with fire and food and the desperate hope that they'll see spring again. This goes on for centuries. Samhain becomes tradition, becomes culture, becomes identity. And then, as happens with annoying regularity throughout history, empire arrives. The Romans, those organized, road building, aqueduct, constructing imperialists, invade Celtic territories. They're appalled and fascinated by Samhain in equal measure. The Romans have their own festivals for the dead, Feralia in February, plus a harvest festival for Pomona, the goddess of fruit and trees. When cultures collide, they don't just fight with swords. They fight with calendars, with gods, with which days are holy and why. Roman influence dilutes Samhain, but doesn't erase it. The festival adapts, incorporates, survives like a stubborn weed growing through cobblestones. Some Samhain traditions blend with Roman practices. Apples, sacred to Pomona, become intertwined with Samhain customs. That's why bobbing for apples, a seemingly random party game, has ancient roots. You're dunking your face into water trying to catch fruit with your teeth, because 2,000 years ago, it meant something about divination and the harvest and possibly your romantic future. Now it just means you're wet and slightly embarrassed at a party. The Romans are the appetizer. The main course of cultural transformation comes with Christianity, and specifically with the organized, determined, we're going to convert everyone eventually machinery of the Catholic Church. Here's the thing about Christianity in its early to middle centuries, it's pragmatic. The church leaders aren't stupid. They know you can't just tell people to stop celebrating festivals that have been part of their culture for generations. That's how you get riots, not converts. So instead, you do something clever. You absorb the pagan holidays, you transform them. You baptize them, literally and figuratively. In 609 AD, Pope Boniface IV does something significant. He dedicates the Pantheon in Rome to all Christian martyrs, establishing the Feast of All Martyrs' Day. This is important, but not yet the full picture. The date, May 13th, not November, not yet. Then comes Pope Gregory III in the 8th century. He expands the festival to include all saints, not just martyrs, and moves it to November 1st. This isn't coincidental. November 1st is the day after Samhain. This is strategic spiritual warfare. You can't eliminate Samhain, so you overwrite it. You give people a Christian alternative that falls on the exact same day. November 1st becomes All Saints' Day, also called All Hallows' Day. Hallow is an Old English word meaning holy or saint. So the night before, October 31st, becomes All Hallows' Eve. Say it fast. Say it with a regional accent. All Hallows' Eve. All Hallow Even. Halloween. There it is. The word itself is Christian, but it's attached to a date that's been weird for millennia. Pope Gregory IV makes All Saints' Day official across the Frankish Empire in 8035 AD. Then November 2nd gets added as All Souls' Day, a time to pray for the dead who aren't saints, just regular dead people trying to get through purgatory. So now you have a 3-day spiritual extravaganza. October 31st is the eve, November 1st is the saints, November 2nd is everyone else. The church has built a Christian framework around a pagan foundation, and the result is architecturally unstable, but culturally indestructible. The people, pragmatic as always, don't abandon Samhain traditions just because a pope said so. They adapt them. Bonfires continue, but now they're for Christian purposes, definitely not pagan. Please don't investigate too closely. Costumes persist, but now people dress as saints and angels. Sometimes. Other times they still dress as demons and monsters because old habits die hard, and also it's more fun. Sulling emerges as a practice, particularly in Britain and Ireland. Poor people, often children, go door to door offering prayers for the dead in exchange for soul cakes. Small round cakes sometimes marked with a cross. You pray for someone's deceased relatives, you get a cake. It's theological transaction meeting practical hunger. The prayers supposedly help the dead move through purgatory faster, which matters greatly if you believe in purgatory and care about your deceased uncle's spiritual journey. There's a song that goes with souling, variations existing across regions. Soul, a soul cake, please good missus, a soul cake. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him what made us all. Children would sing this, collecting cakes, performing a ritual that's part charity, part prayer service, part proto, trick, or treating. The homeowners participate because it's religious obligation, mixed with social expectation, mixed with the lingering suspicion that not participating might bring bad luck. You can Christianize a pagan holiday, but you can't eliminate the anxiety that powered it. Guising develops in Scotland and Ireland. The word comes from disguise. Young people dress in costume and go house to house. But there's a catch: you have to perform something. A song, a poem, a joke, a bit of dancing. You earn your treats through entertainment. This isn't passive begging. This is exchange, performance for payment. And if your joke is bad or your song off key, you might get turnips thrown at you instead of cakes. The stakes are real. Speaking of turnips, let's talk about jack-o'-lanterns, because this is where Halloween gets genuinely weird. There's an Irish folktale about a man named Stingy Jack. Jack is, as his name suggests, not a generous fellow. He's a drunkard, a trickster, a manipulator. One day, Jack encounters the devil, as one does in Irish folktales, where the supernatural is never more than a pub visit away. Jack convinces the devil to climb a tree. While the devil is up there, Jack carves a cross into the trunk, trapping him. Jack makes a deal. He'll let the devil down if the devil promises not to take Jack's soul when he dies. The devil, in a rare moment of being out-negotiated, agrees. Years later, Jack dies. He goes to the gates of heaven, but St. Peter takes one look at his life record and says, absolutely not. So Jack goes to hell, figuring that's his only option. But the devil remembers their deal. Can't take you, the devil says, possibly with some satisfaction. Promised I wouldn't. Where do I go then? Jack asks. Back where you came from, the devil replies. He tosses Jack a burning coal to light his way through the darkness. Jack is stuck in limbo, neither here nor there, wandering for eternity. He hollows out a turnip and places the coal inside to make a lantern. Jack of the Lantern. Jack-o'-lantern. He wanders the earth with his makeshift light. A ghost story cautioning against being too clever for your own good. In Ireland and Scotland, people begin carving faces into turnips and potatoes, placing lights inside them to ward off Stingy Jack and other wandering spirits. These aren't cheerful faces. They're grotesque, terrifying, designed to frighten away evil. You put one in your window or by your door as spiritual protection. The vegetables are hard to carve. Your hands bleed. The faces are crude and disturbing. They work. Halloween traditions in Britain and Ireland continue evolving through the medieval period and beyond. Pranks become common, particularly among young men with too much energy and not enough supervision. Practical jokes that range from moving gates to more destructive acts. There's a sense that Halloween is a night when normal rules are suspended, when chaos is permitted, expected even. The boundary between playful mischief and genuine vandalism is thin and often crossed. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Something is stirring in the colonies that will become America. Early American colonial attitudes toward Halloween are complicated by Puritanism. The Puritan settlers, particularly in New England, are not fans of anything that smells like Catholic ritual or pagan celebration. They've left England partly to escape religious traditions they view as corrupt or superstitious. Halloween, with its murky pagan, Catholic origins, is definitely on the prohibited list. Early New England doesn't celebrate Halloween. They celebrate hard work, prayer, and trying not to freeze to death. Fun is suspicious. But America is more than New England. In the South, in Maryland and the colonies, established by more moderate Protestants or Catholics, Halloween-adjacent festivals occur. Harvest celebrations that borrow from British folk traditions. Play parties in autumn where communities gather to share stories of the dead, tell ghost tales, dance, and celebrate the harvest. These aren't called Halloween yet, but they're in the neighborhood. The massive wave of Irish and Scottish immigration in the mid-1800s, driven by the Great Famine and economic hardship, changes everything. These immigrants bring their traditions with them, packed alongside their meager possessions. Samhain, All Hallows' Eve, Halloween, whatever you want to call it, arrives in America not as a top-down religious imposition, but as a grassroots cultural import. Irish and Scottish communities in America maintain their Halloween traditions. Bonfires where permitted. Fortune-telling games. Stories of the dead and the supernatural. Guising, though it's adapting to the American context. These traditions spread beyond immigrant communities. Partly because they're intriguing, partly because Americans have always loved a good party, and partly because the harvest celebration aspect appeals to the agricultural nature of 19th century American life. By the late 1800s, Halloween is becoming more widespread in America, but it's still not the Halloween you know. It's a hodgepodge of different regional traditions. In some places, it's about courting and matchmaking, young people playing games to divine their romantic futures. In others, it's about pranks and mischief, young men causing mayhem. In others still, it's about community gatherings and harvest celebrations. Ghost stories become a huge part of American Halloween. The late 19th century is experiencing a spiritualism boom, seances in parlors, mediums claiming to contact the dead, an obsession with the supernatural that's part religious crisis, part entertainment, part genuine grief from a nation that's just survived the Civil War and needs to believe the dead can still speak. Halloween, with its traditional association with the spirit world, becomes a perfect occasion for ghost stories, haunted house tales, and supernatural thrills. Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, published in 1820, doesn't create Halloween, but certainly contributes to its American mythology. The Headless Horseman chasing Ichabod Crane becomes one of America's foundational spooky stories. It's set around harvest time, involves the supernatural, and creates an atmosphere of autumnal dread that will become associated with Halloween aesthetics. Irving is tapping into Dutch and German folktale traditions, mixing them with the American landscape, creating something uniquely American, yet rooted in older European fears. But Halloween in the late 1800s has a problem. It's getting out of hand. The pranks are escalating. What starts as moving someone's gate or soaping windows becomes property destruction. Overturned outhouses, a classic that's more destructive than it sounds. Removing wheels from wagons, letting livestock loose, setting fires. The line between mischief and vandalism isn't just being crossed, it's being obliterated. Young men, freed from the usual social constraints by the license of Halloween, are causing real damage and real expense to their communities. Town leaders and concerned citizens begin looking for solutions. You can't ban Halloween, it's too entrenched. You can't police every young person on Halloween night. There aren't enough constables. So you do something clever, you institutionalize it. You bring Halloween into controlled environments. You domesticate it. Community Halloween parties begin emerging in the early 1900s. Towns organize official celebrations, parades, gatherings in town halls or community centers. The idea is simple. Give young people something to do that isn't property crime. Offer prizes for costumes. Organize games. Provide food. Create an official outlet for the energy that was previously channeled into chaos. Schools get involved. Teachers see Halloween as an opportunity for educational activities that are actually fun. Classroom parties develop. Halloween becomes part of the school calendar. This is crucial because it moves Halloween from the street to supervised indoor spaces, from nighttime chaos to afternoon structure. The domestication of Halloween accelerates in the 1920s and 1930s. Women's magazines and home journals publish Halloween party ideas. How to decorate your home. Games to play. Fortunes to tell. Halloween is being repositioned as family entertainment, as wholesome fun, as something respectable middle-class Americans can participate in without worrying about their property being destroyed. But costumes are still evolving. What are people wearing? It's a mix. Ghosts made from sheets with eye holes cut out, the classic for a reason, cheap, easy, recognizable. Witches with pointed hats and broomsticks. Devils with homemade horns. Pirates, hobos, which is a costume that wouldn't age well but is popular because it requires minimal effort, just old clothes and some charcoal smudges. People dress as popular characters from entertainment as the media landscape expands to include movies and radio shows. Importantly, Halloween costumes are still largely homemade. You don't go to a store and buy a costume. You create something from materials you have at home. This requires creativity, effort, and often results in costumes that are more unsettling than intended. A homemade ghost costume with poorly cut eye holes looks less like a friendly spirit and more like a vision of death coming to collect. This isn't cute Halloween. This is still weird Halloween. The 1930s see the first mass-produced Halloween costumes, manufactured by companies that realize there's money in holiday celebration. Ben Cooper Inc. becomes a major player, producing costumes and masks of popular characters. These early mass-produced costumes are often strange. Cheap plastic masks with vinyl smocks printed with the character's image. You're not dressed as Superman. You're wearing a mask of Superman's face while your body is covered with a smock depicting Superman's costume. It's uncanny, unsettling, and wildly popular. Decorations become commercialized too. Paper decorations manufactured for Halloween: black cats, witches, skeletons, jack-o'-lanterns. These aren't subtle decorations. They're bold, often disturbing, reflecting a Halloween aesthetic that hasn't yet been fully sanitized. A 1930s Halloween decoration of a black cat might have an arched back and eyes that seem to reflect genuine malevolence, not the cute, cartoonish style that will dominate later. And speaking of jack-o'-lanterns, remember those turnips. America doesn't have the same turnip tradition. What America has is pumpkins. Large, plentiful, native pumpkins that are much easier to carve than a turnip and make much more impressive lanterns. Irish and Scottish immigrants discover pumpkins and realize they've found the perfect jack-o'-lantern material. The tradition transforms, improves. Pumpkin carving becomes an American Halloween staple. Early pumpkin carvings are still meant to be scary. You're not creating a friendly face. You're creating something that will frighten evil spirits. The tradition is protective, not decorative. But gradually, as Halloween becomes more family-oriented, pumpkins become more playful, more creative, more varied in expression. Now we need to talk about trick or treating, because this is where Halloween transforms into something truly American. Something that will eventually be exported back to the world as the definitive Halloween experience. Trick or treating as we know it doesn't have a single origin point. It evolves from multiple traditions Soling, Geising, the German, American tradition of Belsnickling, where costumed figures would visit homes during Christmas season, and perhaps most directly, the desire to give young people something to do on Halloween that isn't criminal mischief. The phrase, trick or treat, first appears in print in North America in the 1920s. In 1927, a newspaper in Blackie, Alberta, Canada mentions trick or treat in the context of Halloween pranks. The idea is simple and slightly threatening: give us a treat, or we'll play a trick on you. It's extortion, but cute extortion, child-sized protection money paid in candy. Through the 1930s, trick or treating begins spreading, but it's not yet universal. Different communities have different Halloween traditions. Some still focus on parties, others on pranks. Trick or treating is one option among many, not yet the dominant form. Then World War II happens, and Halloween almost disappears. Sugar is rationed. People are focused on the war effort, on survival, on anxiety. Halloween celebrations are greatly reduced or eliminated. There's no candy to give away. Many young people are away fighting. The nation's attention is elsewhere. But after the war ends, something interesting happens. America is experiencing unprecedented prosperity and a baby boom. Suburbs are exploding into existence. A new middle class with disposable income is emerging. Consumer culture is accelerating. And Halloween is perfectly positioned to benefit from all of this. The suburbs are ideal for trick or treating. Houses relatively close together, safe streets, a community of families with children. The post-war emphasis on childhood, on giving children experiences and happiness, aligns perfectly with Halloween as a child-centered holiday. Parents who grew up during the Depression and the war want to give their children something better, something fun, something magical. Candy manufacturers, always alert to opportunity, begin marketing specifically for Halloween. Before this, Halloween treats were often homemade cookies, popcorn balls, apples, small toys, coins. But as trick or treating explodes in the 1950s, pre-packaged candy becomes the standard. It's easier for homeowners. They don't have to bake dozens of cookies. It's individually wrapped, addressing hygiene concerns. It's exactly the kind of convenience that post-war consumer culture is built on. The candy industry begins creating candy specifically marketed for Halloween. Fun-size candy bars are invented, smaller versions of regular candy bars perfect for handing out in bulk. Candy corn, which has existed since the 1880s, gets rebranded as a Halloween staple. It's cheap, its festive colors evoke autumn. It's exactly the kind of candy that exists more for the idea of candy than for actual enjoyment. Let's pause here and talk about candy corn because it deserves its own moment of examination. Candy corn was invented in the 1880s by George Renninger of the Wonderly Candy Company. It was originally called chicken feed and was marketed to rural Americans, evoking the corn that chickens ate. The three colors, yellow, orange, white, were meant to look like corn kernels. This is not a prestigious origin story. The candy itself is sugar, corn syrup, and confectioner's wax, molded into a kernel shape. It's waxy, extremely sweet, and has a texture that people either love or despise with no middle ground. By the 1950s, it's become associated with Halloween, possibly because its colors match the fall aesthetic, possibly because it's cheap to produce in bulk, possibly because someone needed something to fill out those Halloween candy dishes. Candy corn is now inescapable at Halloween, despite a significant portion of the population finding it disgusting. It's tradition, it's nostalgia, it's the candy equivalent of an uncomfortable family obligation. You buy it because it's Halloween. You eat maybe 3 pieces. The rest of the bag sits on your counter until January, when you throw it away with a mixture of relief and guilt. By the 1960s and 1970s, trick or treating has become the dominant Halloween activity for children across America. It's structured and expected. Children dress in costumes, go door to door in their neighborhoods, say, trick or treat, receive candy, and return home to sort through their haul. This is the Halloween that generations will grow up with, the Halloween that becomes cultural bedrock. But this is also when Halloween starts getting weird again, weird in new ways. The 1960s and 1970s bring cultural anxiety, concerns about child safety, about strangers, about the breakdown of community trust. Urban legends begin circulating about tampered Halloween candy. Razor blades in apples. Poison in candy. Strangers trying to harm children through Halloween treats. Here's the truth: these concerns are almost entirely unfounded. Extensive research has found virtually no verified cases of strangers randomly poisoning Halloween candy. The few incidents that did occur involved family members, not strangers. But facts don't matter as much as fear. Parents become anxious. News media, sensing a story, amplify the concerns. Hospitals begin offering to X-ray candy. Schools send home warnings. The razor blade in the apple becomes the defining urban legend of 1970s Halloween. A fear that's almost entirely fictional, but feels real, because it taps into deeper anxieties, that the world is dangerous, that innocence is under attack, that strangers cannot be trusted. Halloween, which has always been about fears, now includes the fear of Halloween itself. This leads to changes. Parents begin accompanying children trick or treating. Age limits for trick or treating are discussed and sometimes implemented. Communities organize alternative events, trunk or treat, in church parking lots where children go car to car in a controlled environment, or indoor Halloween festivals where everything is supervised and nothing is left to chance. Despite these anxieties, or perhaps because of them, Halloween continues growing in popularity and commercial importance. Costume sales increase. Decoration sales explode. Halloween becomes a major consumer holiday, second only to Christmas in terms of retail spending. The 1970s and 1980s see Halloween decorations becoming more elaborate. Inflatable yard decorations, elaborate light displays, fake graveyards in front yards. Haunted houses become a cultural phenomenon, both professional operations and elaborate home displays. Halloween is no longer just for children. Adults are claiming Halloween too, creating displays that are genuinely frightening, or at least genuinely expensive. Horror movies become intertwined with Halloween. John Carpenter's Halloween, released in 1978, is both named for and set during the holiday. It establishes many slasher film tropes and creates an association between Halloween and horror entertainment that will persist. Halloween becomes the opening for horror movie releases. The Nightmare Before Christmas, in 1993, blends Halloween with Christmas, creating a cult classic that argues about which holiday it actually belongs to. Television gets into Halloween. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, airs in 1966 and becomes an annual tradition, teaching children that waiting for a mythical great pumpkin is futile but also charming. The Simpsons begins their Treehouse of Horror Halloween specials in 1990, creating anthology episodes that become annual events. Halloween episodes become standard for sitcoms and dramas, an excuse for unusual storylines and costumes. Halloween parties for adults become increasingly elaborate. The Greenwich Village Halloween Parade in New York City becomes one of the largest Halloween celebrations in the world. Nightclubs and bars host Halloween events. Costume creativity reaches new heights, ranging from clever and funny to sexy. Because at some point Halloween costumes split into two distinct categories: children's costumes, which remain relatively innocent, and adult costumes which discover that adding sexy before any noun creates a costume idea. The rise of the internet and social media supercharges Halloween. People share costume ideas, decoration tutorials, elaborate makeup techniques. Pinterest becomes a Halloween planning tool. Instagram becomes a platform for showing off costumes and decorations. YouTube features haunted house walkthroughs and Halloween tutorials. Halloween becomes a content creation opportunity, a chance for viral moments and aesthetic displays. The commercialization of Halloween reaches peaks that would astonish those early Celts huddling around Samhain bonfires. Americans spend billions, with a B, on Halloween annually. Costumes, candy, decorations, greeting cards, party supplies. Alcohol, because adult Halloween parties require refreshments. Pet costumes, because your dog needs to be a hot dog for Halloween. The economic impact is staggering. Retail stores begin setting up Halloween displays in late August, sometimes earlier. A Christmas creep equivalent that's become Halloween creep. Spirit Halloween stores, which exist only during Halloween season, pop up in empty storefronts, temporary temples to a temporary holiday, filled with costumes and animatronic decorations that sense motion and suddenly scream, giving shoppers small heart attacks. The aesthetics of Halloween have splintered into multiple styles. Traditional Halloween with its orange and black color scheme, witches and black cats. Cute Halloween with friendly ghosts and smiling pumpkins, designed for young children and those who prefer their holidays non-threatening. Elegant Halloween with sophisticated black and white decorations, metallic accents. Halloween for adults who want to celebrate but maintain their interior design aesthetic. And hardcore Halloween, the people who transform their homes into professional, level haunted attractions, who spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours creating experiences that frighten and delight. Haunted houses, hayrides, and horror attractions have become an industry. Professional haunted houses employ actors, special effects, elaborate sets. They push boundaries, offering different intensity levels, sometimes requiring waivers. The desire to be frightened in a controlled environment has created an economy. People pay to be scared, to experience terror they can walk away from. Halloween as adrenaline delivery system. The horror genre and Halloween are now inseparably linked. Horror films time their releases around Halloween. Horror-themed television shows and streaming series premiere in October. True crime podcasts do special Halloween episodes. The holiday has become an aesthetic, a mood, a month-long celebration of the macabre and the spooky. But Halloween isn't just American anymore. It's been exported, with varying degrees of success and cultural adaptation. In Ireland and Scotland, Halloween never really left. It evolved alongside American Halloween, influenced by American culture, but retaining local traditions. Bonfires still happen in some areas. Traditional foods like barmbrack, a fruitcake with objects baked inside for fortune-telling, persist. The celebration is both old and new, indigenous and imported. In England, Halloween competes with Guy Fawkes Night on November 5th, which has its own bonfire and celebration traditions. Trick or treating has become more common in recent decades, an American import that's been adopted with varying enthusiasm. Some embrace it, others grumble about American cultural imperialism while buying candy just in case. In Mexico and parts of Latin America, Halloween encounters Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, which occurs on November 1st and 2nd. These are different holidays with different purposes, Day of the Dead being about honoring and remembering deceased loved ones with ofrendas, altars, and celebration, not fear or horror. But they occur at the same time, and in border areas and among diaspora communities. They influence each other. Some families celebrate both, though purists in Mexico express concern about Halloween overshadowing their indigenous traditions. In Japan, Halloween has been adopted in a unique way. There's no trick or treating in the traditional sense, but Halloween has become an excuse for elaborate cosplay and street parties, particularly in areas like Shibuya in Tokyo. Young adults dress in incredibly detailed costumes, often from anime, video games, or movies, and participate in massive gatherings. It's Halloween filtered through Japanese pop culture, creating something that would be unrecognizable to the ancient Celts, but is absolutely recognizable as a contemporary celebration. Other countries have adopted Halloween, with varying degrees of enthusiasm, often focusing on the party and costume aspects, rather than trick or treating. Halloween has become a global brand, a commercialized cultural product that represents a specific aesthetic: autumn, horror, costumes, candy, fun, fear. But let's step back and consider what Halloween has become, and what it still is underneath all the commercial gloss and candy wrappers. Halloween is still about transformation. On Halloween night, you become someone or something else. Children transform into superheroes, monsters, princesses, dinosaurs. Adults transform into clever puns, sexy cats, elaborate characters from media. For one night, you're not bound by your usual identity. This is powerful, magical even, a remnant of those original Samhain disguises meant to confuse spirits. Halloween is still about the dead, even if we've sanitized this aspect. The skeletons, ghosts, and tombstones in decorations aren't just spooky aesthetics. They're the continuation of ancient acknowledgement that death exists, that the dead are part of our world, that we need to make space for discussing and depicting mortality. In a culture that often refuses to talk about death openly, Halloween provides permission. Halloween is still about community, though the form has changed. Instead of village-wide bonfires, we have neighborhoods participating in trick or treating, creating a shared experience. Houses that leave their porch lights on are participating in a communal celebration, a signal that you're part of this tradition. The neighborhoods that go all out with decorations, create destinations, draw people together, form temporary communities around shared experience. Halloween is still about the boundary between light and dark, summer and winter, even if most of us experience this from climate-controlled homes. October 31st still marks the transition into the darker part of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. The aesthetic of Halloween, all those autumn colors, bare trees, and lengthening shadows, reflects the actual environmental changes happening. We're still acknowledging the season's shift, even if our survival no longer depends on it. Halloween is still transgressive. It's the one night when normal rules are somewhat suspended. Children are allowed to take candy from strangers, violating every other parental warning. People wear costumes that might be inappropriate any other day of the year. Houses are decorated with imagery that's deliberately unsettling. There's a sanctioned chaos to Halloween, a permitted weirdness that makes it exciting and slightly dangerous feeling, even when it's completely safe. The trick or treating ritual itself is strange if you think about it. You send your children into the night, dressed as monsters, to knock on strangers' doors and demand candy with a thinly veiled threat trick or treat. It's ritualized begging, community, sanctioned extortion, an exchange of performance for goods. The children perform childhood, perform cuteness or scariness, and in return receive tribute. The homeowners participate in an economic exchange that's not quite charity and not quite commerce, somewhere in between. The candy haul, that pillowcase or plastic pumpkin full of candy that children bring home, and then spread out to inventory and categorize, is a strange practice. Children organize their candy by type, negotiating trades with siblings, rationing their favorites, creating economic systems around chocolate bars and gummy worms. Parents institute taxes, taking pieces for inspection or personal consumption. It's capitalism in miniature, a lesson in resource management and delayed gratification, all centered around corn syrup and food coloring. And the candy itself has become a marker of generational experience. Everyone has opinions about Halloween candy hierarchy. Chocolate bars are universally accepted currency. Gummy candies have their advocates. Candy corn remains divisive. And then there are the disappointing candies, the generic hard candies in orange and black wrappers that seem to exist only for Halloween. The mysterious flavors that no one asked for, the non-candy items like pencils or toothbrushes that well-meaning but misguided houses distribute, earning reputations as places to skip next year. The full-size candy bar house becomes legendary in every neighborhood. This is the house that doesn't give out fun-size or snack-size candy. They give out full, regular-size candy bars, an act of generosity that seems almost extravagant, that creates lines of trick or treaters and becomes the stuff of neighborhood legend. These houses understand something fundamental. Halloween is about abundance, about excess, about the temporary suspension of rules around sugar consumption and strangers. But Halloween has also become a flashpoint for various cultural anxieties and debates that reveal deeper tensions in society. The sexy Halloween costume debate has been ongoing for decades. At some point, costume manufacturers discovered that adding sexy to any profession, object, or concept created a marketable adult costume. Sexy nurse, sexy cop, sexy pirate, sexy corn, apparently. The trend has been criticized as reducing Halloween to an excuse for provocative dress, defended as adults exercising autonomy over their own bodies and costume choices, and analyzed as reflecting broader cultural issues around women's sexuality and commercial exploitation. It's a yearly conversation that surfaces every October, along with pieces about whether Halloween has become too sexualized, and whether that's anyone's business. cultural appropriation in costumes has become another major conversation. Costumes that appropriate indigenous cultures, that treat ethnic identities as costumes, that engage in racial stereotyping. All of these have moved from unexamined to examined to controversial to, in many contexts, unacceptable. The conversation reveals how Halloween's "you can be anything" premise runs into the reality that some things aren't yours to be. That identity isn't costume. That transformation has limits and ethics. This has led to genuine reflection about what makes an appropriate costume. Is it okay to dress as a specific character who happens to be a different race than you? Is it okay to dress as a cultural archetype? Where are the lines? These conversations are ongoing, sometimes productive, sometimes contentious, but they represent Halloween grappling with contemporary values around representation and respect. The age limit debate persists. At what age should people stop trick or treating? Some communities have actually legislated age limits, threatening fines for teenagers who trick or treat, an enforcement of childhood boundaries that many find absurd and mean-spirited. Others argue that trick or treating is for children, that teenagers and adults participating are violating the spirit of the holiday. Counter-arguments suggest that if someone is willing to dress up and participate in the ritual, they should receive candy regardless of age, that Halloween should be inclusive and joy shouldn't have an age limit. Religious objections to Halloween have never entirely disappeared. Some Christian denominations and churches refuse to participate in Halloween, viewing it as satanic or demonic, too rooted in paganism or the occult. These groups often organize alternative events, harvest festivals or Hallelujah nights, that provide Halloween-adjacent activities without the Halloween association. Other religious groups embrace Halloween as secular fun, arguing that carved pumpkins and candy corn aren't actually demonic. The debate continues, a reminder that Halloween's pagan, Christian hybrid origins still generate discomfort for some. The commercialization itself has critics who argue that Halloween, like most holidays, has been mined by capitalism, transformed from a cultural tradition into a retail opportunity, that the authentic meaning, whatever that was, has been lost to mass-produced decorations and corporate candy. This criticism is valid, and also kind of misses the point that Halloween has always been syncretic, adaptive, commercial in its own way. The Celts were bartering with the dead. Medieval Sulas were exchanging prayers for cakes. The form of transaction has changed, but transaction has always been part of Halloween. And yet, despite all the commercialization, despite the debates and controversies, despite the sanitization and the suburbanization, Halloween retains something essential, something that connects back to those Samhain bonfires. Halloween is still the night when we collectively acknowledge that the world is strange, that darkness exists, that we are mortal, that fear can be fun, that transformation is possible, that community means participating in shared rituals even when they don't make logical sense. The child who trick or treats is participating in something ancient, even if they don't know it. They're wearing a disguise, crossing thresholds, receiving offerings, performing rituals. The suburban street on Halloween night, filled with costumed children going door to door, illuminated by jack-o'-lanterns, is not so different in essence from a Celtic village on Samhain. People disguised and moving through the darkness, fires lit against the shadows. The adult who carves an elaborate jack-o'-lantern is continuing a tradition of creating protective symbols, of artistic expression rooted in folklore. The person who decorates their home with ghosts and skeletons is acknowledging death, making it visible, refusing to pretend that mortality doesn't exist. This is psychologically healthy, this permission to contemplate and depict death in controlled, even playful ways. The horror fan who watches scary movies every October, who visits haunted houses, who seeks out fear-inducing experiences, is engaging in a practice that's fundamentally human, using fear in safe contexts to process fear in unsafe contexts, to feel the adrenaline and relief, to experience danger without actual danger. Halloween provides what psychologists might call a liminal space, a threshold between states. It's between seasons, between light and dark parts of the year, between the living and the dead in its mythology, between childhood and adulthood in its practices, between fear and fun in its execution. Liminal spaces are powerful. They're where transformation happens, where rules are unclear, where possibility exists. Consider the Halloween party, any Halloween party, from a child's school party to an adult costume party. Everyone is in disguise, performing versions of themselves or performing as not themselves. Social dynamics shift. The shy person might wear a bold costume. The serious person might choose something silly. Identities are playful, flexible. For one night, you can try on a different self, see how it fits, maybe learn something. The community aspect of Halloween, the participation required, is increasingly rare in modern life. How many other occasions require neighborhood-wide cooperation? When else do strangers open their doors to children they don't know? When else is there an expectation that you'll participate in a shared cultural ritual? Halloween creates temporary community where atomization is the norm. And there's something deeply democratic about Halloween. Rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods both celebrate, though the scale might differ. Expensive, elaborate costumes and cheap, homemade costumes coexist. Professional decorations and paper decorations both contribute to the atmosphere. There's room for everyone to participate at whatever level they can manage. You don't need to be wealthy to have a good Halloween. You need creativity, participation, willingness to engage with the ritual. The pandemic of 2020 tested Halloween in ways that revealed how much people valued it. Trick or treating was dangerous, gathering in groups was dangerous, the usual celebrations were impossible. But people adapted. Candy shoots, elaborate contraptions to deliver candy while maintaining distance. Costume parades where families walked but didn't interact. Decorations became even more important when the human interaction was limited. People found ways to maintain Halloween because it mattered, because the ritual mattered, because marking the season and the strangeness mattered. When Halloween returned more fully in 2021 and 2022, the participation was enthusiastic, almost relieved. People had missed Halloween, missed the ritual, missed the community experience, missed the excuse to be weird together. This wasn't just about candy. It was about needing markers in time, needing celebration, needing permission to be playful and spooky and transformed. The environmental impact of Halloween has started generating conversation. The amount of plastic in costumes and decorations, the waste generated by single-use items, the carbon footprint of shipping billions of dollars worth of Halloween merchandise. Some people are pushing for more sustainable Halloween practices. Reusable decorations, second-hand or homemade costumes, candy alternatives, composting pumpkins. It's Halloween adapting again, responding to contemporary concerns, trying to maintain tradition while acknowledging planetary limits. Halloween in the 21st century is simultaneously more commercial and more DIY than ever. You can buy anything, any costume, any decoration, pre-made and delivered to your door. But simultaneously, DIY culture, maker culture, craft culture has created a renaissance of handmade Halloween. People sewing elaborate costumes, building wooden decorations, creating spectacular displays through personal effort. YouTube and Pinterest and TikTok have democratized Halloween creativity, providing tutorials and inspiration, creating communities of Halloween enthusiasts who share techniques and ideas. The rise of elaborate home haunts, houses transformed into walk-through haunted experiences, represents Halloween taken to its logical extreme. These aren't professional operations. They're individuals or families who spend months planning, building, decorating, creating experiences for their communities. Some are fundraisers for charity. Some are just for love of Halloween. They represent the holiday's capacity to inspire devotion, to create meaning through effort, to build community through shared experience. The Halloween enthusiast, the person whose basement is full of decorations, who plans their display year-round, who spends more on Halloween than seems reasonable, is practicing a form of devotion. It's not religious devotion exactly, but it's dedication to something larger than themselves, to creating joy and fear and wonder for their community, to maintaining a tradition they find meaningful. And what about the future of Halloween? Where does a 2,000-year-old holiday go from here? Climate change might alter Halloween seasonal associations. As weather patterns shift, the autumn chill that characterizes Halloween might move later or disappear in some regions. The agricultural roots of Halloween, the harvest festival aspects, might become even more abstracted as fewer people have direct connection to farming and seasons. Technology will continue changing Halloween. Virtual and augmented reality might create new Halloween experiences. AI might generate personalized horror experiences or help create elaborate decorations. Drone light shows might replace fireworks or complement traditional decorations. Social media will continue shaping how Halloween is performed and shared. But the core of Halloween, the things that have persisted through every transformation, will likely persist. The costumes, because humans love transformation and performance. The treats, because exchange and abundance are fundamental to celebration. The spookiness, because we need ways to process fear and acknowledge mortality. The community gathering, because we're social creatures who need shared rituals. Halloween will keep adapting, because that's what Halloween does. It adapted from Samhain to All Hallows Eve to trick, or treating to commercial spectacular. It absorbed Roman festivals and Christian reframing, and American commercialism and global export. It's fundamentally syncretic, fundamentally flexible, fundamentally resilient. The child who goes trick or treating next October 31st, dressed as whatever character currently captures their imagination, walking through their neighborhood collecting candy, is participating in an unbroken chain of tradition, stretching back millennia. They're crossing thresholds like the ancient Celts believed spirits crossed thresholds on Samhain. They're wearing disguises like their ancestors wore to confuse the dead. They're receiving offerings like solars received soul cakes. They're participating in community, ritual like humans have always participated in community rituals. The form has changed beyond recognition. The ancient Celts would be baffled by inflatable lawn decorations and fun-size Snickers bars, but they'd recognize the essence. A night when the rules change, when darkness is acknowledged, when community comes together, when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Halloween exists in that strange space between past and present, between sacred and commercial, between fear and fun, between child and adult, between death and life. It's a holiday that shouldn't work, that by all logic should have been stamped out by Christianity, or sanitized beyond recognition, or abandoned as superstitious nonsense. But it persists, it thrives, it grows. Because apparently humans need Halloween. We need permission to be weird. We need excuses to engage with our neighbors. We need rituals that mark time and acknowledge change. We need to occasionally contemplate mortality while eating candy. We need to transform into something else for a night, and then transform back, changed slightly by the experience. Halloween is the holiday that asks, what if, for one night, the world could be different? What if you could be someone else? What if the dead could return? What if fear could be fun? What if strangers were friends? What if ordinary homes could become portals to other worlds? What if? And every October 31st, millions of people answer, yes, let's pretend. Let's participate. Let's believe just for tonight. That magic is real and monsters are real and transformation is possible, and community matters, and death doesn't have the final word. Because we can make jokes about skeletons and carve faces into pumpkins and laugh in the darkness. That's Halloween. Not the candy corn or the costumes or the decorations, though those are all part of it. Halloween is the collective decision to set aside one night for acknowledged strangeness, for permitted weirdness, for ritual celebration of things we usually ignore or fear. From Celtic bonfires to spirit Halloween stores, from Stingy Jack to sexy cat costumes, from soul cakes to fun-size candy bars, Halloween has traveled an impossible journey. It survived conquest and conversion, sanitization and commercialization, anxiety and adaptation. It's been many things to many people: religious observance, harvest festival, community celebration, childhood rite, commercial opportunity, cultural export, aesthetic movement. But underneath all the transformations, Halloween remains what it's always been: humanity's conversation with darkness. Not darkness as evil necessarily, but darkness as unknown, as mysterious, as mortal, as natural. Halloween says the darkness exists, we acknowledge it, we'll decorate it with orange lights and make it a party, but we won't pretend it isn't there. The jack-o'-lantern glowing on a porch, that carved pumpkin with a candle inside, is maybe the perfect symbol for Halloween. It's a light in darkness, but it's not trying to eliminate the darkness. It's not floodlights or security lights claiming to make everything visible and safe. It's a small, flickering, temporary light that acknowledges the darkness while creating a small sphere of warmth within it. It's both welcoming and slightly uncanny. It's homemade but traditional. It's silly, a vegetable with a face, and also profound, humanity's ancient impulse to make art and meaning in the face of mortality. That jack-o'-lantern is lit by someone who decided to participate, who carved the pumpkin despite the mess, who put it on their porch as a signal to their community. I'm here, I'm participating. This house celebrates Halloween, trick or treaters are welcome, the ritual continues. And when a child approaches that house, costume rustling, candy bag in hand, and sees that glowing pumpkin, they're seeing what countless humans have seen before them: a light in darkness, a welcome, an invitation to participate in something larger than themselves, something connecting them to the past and the future, something strange and wonderful and slightly spooky. They ring the doorbell. The door opens. They say those magic words, the incantation that grants entrance to the ritual, trick or treat, and the person at the door, playing their part in this ancient, modern drama, drops candy into the offered bag, completing the exchange, the offering, the participation in community and tradition, and the glorious weirdness of Halloween. The child moves on to the next house. The ritual continues. The holiday persists, because humans, it turns out, need Halloween. We need a night when the veil is thin, when transformation is possible, when community gathers, when fear becomes fun, when the dead are remembered, when candy is abundant, when rules are bent, when normal life is suspended and something magical, something strange, something ancient and commercial and sacred and silly all at once takes its place. That's Halloween. From ancient Samhain bonfires to modern trick or treating, from Celtic disguises to spirit Halloween costumes, from turnip lanterns to carved pumpkins, from soul cakes to candy corn, from warding off evil spirits to collecting fun-size Snickers bars, Halloween has traveled an improbable journey across time and cultures and meanings. And somehow, impossibly, essentially, it remains itself, still strange, still compelling, still calling us to participate in darkness made festive, in mortality made playful, in fear made fun, in community made visible through the simple act of lights on porches and doors opening to costumed strangers and candy exchanged, and the collective agreement that for one night, the world is different. Halloween endures because it speaks to something fundamental in human nature: the need for ritual, the desire for transformation, the impulse to make meaning from mortality, the joy of community, the thrill of fear in safe contexts, the pleasure of abundance, the relief of acknowledged darkness. Every plastic skeleton hung on a porch, every child in a costume, every jack-o'-lantern glowing, every bowl of candy waiting by the door, every haunted house, every Halloween party, every person who participates in any way. They're all continuing a conversation that began around ancient fires, a conversation between humanity and the darkness, between the living and the dead, between fear and celebration. And that conversation, remarkably, has not ended. Every October 31st, it continues. The ancient ritual adapted and transformed, but fundamentally unchanged. We light our jack-o'-lanterns like those ancient bonfires. We wear our costumes like those Celtic disguises. We exchange treats like those medieval soul cakes. We tell ghost stories like generations before us. We mark the season's change and acknowledge mortality and build community and transform ourselves, and then, when November 1st arrives, we return to our ordinary lives, slightly changed by the experience, until next year, when Halloween returns, as it always does, as it always will, because some traditions, some rituals, some holidays are too strange, too adaptable, too fundamentally human to ever truly disappear. Halloween is one of them. From ghosts to candy corn, from Celtic festivals to suburban trick, or treating, from sacred to commercial to something that somehow both, Halloween persists. And on October 31st next year, the jack-o'-lanterns will glow again. The costumes will rustle, the doorbells will ring, the candy will flow, and the strange, wonderful, ancient, modern ritual will continue, connecting us to the past and the future and each other through the simplest of acts: participation in shared weirdness, celebration of acknowledged darkness, and the eternal human impulse to make something magical from the ordinary. That's Halloween. Strange, persistent, adaptable, commercial, traditional, scary, fun, ancient, modern, meaningful, silly, dark, festive, all at once. And somehow, impossibly, it works. Happy Halloween.